What's going on, everyone? This is Matt High, the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Got a special episode today. I want to break down my top 12 Dynasty quarterbacks for the 2025 season. Got 4 tiers. Let's break it down.
Welcome to the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast.
All right, in tier 1, I have none other than Josh Allen as my quarterback 1. Looking at this past season, he lost 2 of his receiving weapons. Did not matter at all. He was awesome. Finished as the QB2 in fantasy football, just behind Lamar Jackson, averaging about 24 fantasy points per game. He had a boom week 25% of the time. Good games 63% of the time. Only busted 25% of the time. He was absolutely a monster. Started off as a QB3 in the first half of the year, went to QB2, and finished the playoffs as the QB6. If you had him, you were in a really good spot. I expect more of the same. It didn't really matter. James Cook had a stellar year as well. Did not matter. Didn't take away from Josh Allen at all. Quarterback 2 here, I have none other than Lamar Jackson. QB1 finish in 2024, he averaged about 26.2 fantasy points per game. This guy was on fire. He had his most consistent year in his career, and he was just a monster. I expect more of the same next season. We had Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator. He signed a long-term extension with the Ravens. They have Derrick Henry. I expect this team to be in the market for a wide receiver this offseason, so I think this is going to be one of those teams that it's just going to get better. You get this guy more weapons, and he could still move the ball with his legs. He's just the epitome of a dual threat quarterback. So coming in at my quarterback 2, you can easily put him 1. That's why they're both in tier 1. All right, moving on to tier 2, QB3, the rookie sensation himself, Jayden Daniels. Washington Commanders. This season was awesome for him. He was a force of nature. We saw this going into the season where we expected him to have the legs. We didn't know if he was going to be able to take hits or if he was going to be smart and kind of try to avoid them. It didn't matter. He was accurate. He moved the ball with his legs. He showed he was very decisive. This team went from low expectations to they made it to the one game away for the Super Bowl. I mean, that's an incredible feat for just a rookie quarterback. So another year in the system. I expect this as another team. They're going to be looking for a wide receiver to help out Jayden Daniels and take some pressure off of Terry McLaurin. This is a guy, if you have him in Dynasty, you are ecstatic because he went from being one of the top couple picks in your rookie draft to now being an untouchable. So if you have him, congratulations. Watch the points roll in for the next couple seasons. My quarterback 4 is Jalen Hurts. Heading to the Super Bowl, we all thought, Jason Kelce gone, maybe the tush push wasn't going to be as effective. We thought that bringing in Saquon Barkley was going to take away some of those opportunities. Well, it did, but it didn't really matter because he still got his. It was mainly the passing game that took a step back. And the great thing about Jalen Hurts is those are just bonus points. You don't really need him to pass a whole heck of a lot. He's going to get the job done with his legs. He did look like he was not running as much at portions of the season, dealt with a couple injuries, and if you had him in your finals, I am sorry, he burned you. But I know it's an emotional game we play here in fantasy football, but you got to get over it because trading him away just because of one performance would be terrible. So Jalen Hurts comes in to finish up my tier 2 at the quarterback 4. All right, starting off tier 3 at my quarterback position is Joe Burrow coming in at QB5. Finishing the 2024 season as the quarterback 3, he was on fire. This team moved through him. It was plain and simple. The running game was ineffective for the first couple weeks of the season, their defense is what let them down. We'd be talking about Joe Burrow as a potential MVP candidate a little bit more than we are right now if the Bengals had made the playoffs. If the Bengals made the playoffs, I think it goes to Joe Burrow. He would at least get a couple more votes. So Joe Burrow, the offseason is going to be a little difficult. Where's T. Higgins going? Are they paying Jamar Chase? They're going to, but it just depends on how you keep your guys happy. And the Bengals have a history of doing the exact opposite, but I'm thinking right now that T. Higgins is going to resign. They're going to probably franchise tag him. He's not going to want to play, but I think he's going to sign because this team is a Super Bowl contender if they fix that defense. If you keep that offense the same, they're going to do great things. And we saw that this year. He put the team on his back, him, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. That trifecta is probably one of the best in the entire NFL. So I don't think they should break that up. But we will see what happens. My quarterback 6 is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Now, why is he not up higher? Because I don't know what this team is going to be. They made the Super Bowl. This team in the past 2 years has focused on the run game. They haven't really had to use Patrick Mahomes to the point where his fantasy statistics have been really, really bad. He had a really good finish to the season this year, but before that, there was a 17-plus game stretch where he did not break 20 fantasy points. The stability, I think, is there because of the long-term contract, the age, and the system he plays for. But this team also has a lot of questions. Is Travis Kelce going to retire if they win the Super Bowl or even if they lose the Super Bowl? How healthy is Isaiah Pacheco going to be next year? Who else is going to be in the running back room competing with him next year? Who's the wide receivers? Is Rashee Rice back and in full form? Or are they going to try to find someone else? Could T. Higgins end up being here? I don't know. There's too many questions. Andy Reid could also retire. That's why I have him a little bit lower. He can very easily jump back up if they fix some things and bring a couple guys in. But you're going to have to do a wait-and-see approach for that. My quarterback 7 is going to be Jordan Love. Now, Jordan Love, he looks pretty good. I know the end of the season and at portions of the season didn't really look all that great. The team was dealing with injuries and Josh Jacobs was there. He was really taking a lot of the work out of the passing game by taking over the game. Past couple weeks of the season, he was getting 2-3 touchdowns per game. That was taking away from Jordan Love. But we've also seen the ceiling that Jordan Love has and his rushing capability. If we can get this team, the Packers, a solid wide receiver, a true alpha wide receiver, I think the sky is the absolute limit for this kid. I expect them to be very, very active in the draft in getting a wide receiver. This is probably going to be one of the years where the first round wide receiver is definitely going to go to the Packers. If not, I could see them being a dark horse for a player like T. Higgins. I know I brought T. Higgins up a lot so far this episode. That just goes to show you he's going to have his choice of what team to go to. If it's up to him, he can pick whoever he wants. Now, moving on to my tier 4. This is where we get into some unknowns, some hopes, some dreams. QB8 is going to be C.J. Stroud. Now, last season, if you drafted him in redraft, he was a bust. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He was a bust. 5th, 6th round pick, did not live up to expectations. In fact, he finished as the QB 18, but he was drafted as the QB 5. You feel terrible about that. But if you take a look at the situation he was in, at portions of the season, he lost Nico Collins, who was the number 1 wide receiver through the first couple weeks of the season. He lost Stephon Diggs. He lost Tank Dell. He lost Joe Mixon. This team went through it this year. And I expect them to come out into this season with a revamped offense. I think this is going to be one of the years where he has a sophomore year slump, and he's going to be a huge third-year quarterback. So if you can, I'd buy the dip. Because the person who has him this year probably is looking at, is this going to be a long-term thing? The blood's in the water. You got to try to find out the manager what their weak spot is. You might be able to get him for a little bit on the cheap. And I think this is a great opportunity to do so. Next quarterback here at my QB9, Drake Maye on the New England Patriots. This was a guy in the draft process I really liked. I had him, I think I compared him to Josh Allen in his mechanics. And I think with him, I didn't expect him to get a huge jump year one just because of the way the Patriots were looking to shaking out in year one in his rookie season. He couldn't beat out Jacoby Brissett for the first couple weeks. Then he started getting a chance. Jacoby started going out to the wayside. This team they have the most cap space in the NFL with $125 million to spend. They're going to be putting a ton of money into players, trying to revamp this team. Mike Vrabel is now the head coach. I really like that. He's going to bring discipline to this team, and I think that's what they need. Now, Drake Maye has already showed that he has the rushing capability. He's got a powerful arm. He's pretty accurate. There's not too much not to like with Drake Maye. So I think this year he's going to elevate into that top 12 quarterback and be one of these forces that you want on your roster. And if you don't have them and you got to go against them, it's not going to be fun for you. So QB9 is Drake Maye. All right, my quarterback 10 is Caleb Williams. Looking at what he did last year, you're pretty discouraged. We had high hopes. The number 1 overall pick, you put him up on a pedestal, way up here. But sadly, that's just not how it works nowadays. It takes these guys a little bit of time. Even CJ Stroud struggled his first year. He didn't have the best rookie year. He was really good. And we kind of put that on everyone as fantasy managers in the fantasy community. Like, no, you were drafted number 1. You got to be good. You got to be this next guy. We're spoiled, all right? We have to lower our expectations for these rookies, especially in the situation he was in. Now, on paper, it looked like his offensive weapons were awesome. That's what you want to do for a rookie quarterback. You bring in a solid wide receiver in Keenan Allen. You have DJ Moore. You lock him up to a long-term deal. You draft a rookie wide receiver who everyone was in love with. But they didn't really fix the offensive line, and that kind of hurt him. He was always running for his life. And part of the reason why I didn't really like him as much during the draft process, I had, I tempered my expectations with him just because we see year in, year out quarterbacks try to play hero ball. It just doesn't work. You can try all you want, but if you're running for your life from the very beginning of the game to the very end of the game, there's a lot of things that are going to go wrong for you. And we saw that this year. Case in point, DeAndre Swift, pretty solid running back if he could stay healthy. He was, utilizing the passing game a lot this year, but they need a solid foundation. They need a solid run game to open things up. Now, this is why I have him at QB10. They just brought in Ben Johnson, formerly of the Detroit Lions. Now, we all witnessed what that offense did this entire year, even going into last year. I think this time he's going to have his say. He's going to make sure he puts Caleb in the best position with offensive schemes. They're going to have to revamp this offensive line to protect him because I think when protected, he could be one of these rising stars. He could live up to that expectation we all had with him being drafted as the QB1. So having Caleb Williams here is more of a hope for the future with all the pieces being fixed around him, which I do expect to be fixed. Ben Johnson is going to make sure he puts his guy in a position to succeed, and the entire team is going to benefit from that. All right, my QB 11 in Dynasty is Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler has been kind of a thorn in your side for the past couple of years because you see the spikes. You see the ceiling games, his rushing capability. He's got a really high floor when he rushes the ball. Sadly, he doesn't really rush the ball as much as we want anymore. Could that be partly because he's dealt with injuries in the past? Is it just the offensive scheme? We thought bringing in the prodigal son of Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm guilty. I thought he was going to be awesome year one. I put him in for I had him breaking Puka Nakua's record. That's how high I was on Marvin Harrison Jr. as were so many other people in the fantasy community. Rightfully so, because he's that dude. Him and Kyler just were not on the same page this year. So looking at 2025, I expect them both this offseason to put in the work, get on the same page, and it's going to be a night and day difference heading into 2025. So looking at Kyler, you have to expect Trey McBride broke out this year. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. in his second year. Michael Wilson is a solid wide receiver. Probably not for fantasy, but for the NFL reason, he's still pretty good. They still have James Conner, who can help bolster the running back room. He is getting a little older. This is like the first year ever in his career that he made it through 17 weeks of the season. So I do expect them to kind of revamp it a little bit. You know, they brought in Trey Benson last year, couldn't really get on the field. So this team is going through some things. They need to figure some stuff out, probably make some moves this offseason to bring in other players to help kind of build up morale and just really get them in a position where they're not fighting for their lives every game. They need to work on the defense, and I think something was wrong with Kyler this year. I don't know what it was, but he just didn't seem like the same player we have become accustomed to. Him being here, it's a lot of the baseline of his rushing attack, which I expect him to get back into for 2025. And then also just the hopes of the future with, you know, the coach, Jonathan Gann, is there. We also have Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. He's just got a lot of really good pieces that can really elevate his game. It just depends on if he can figure it out. All right, my quarterback 12. You'll notice in this tier, I got a bunch of rookies, and here we go. I got another one. Bo Nix. That dude was awesome. He came out of nowhere. He was drafted as a quarterback 23 this year, finished as a QB 10. Now, looking at what he was able to do, he had a couple really big spike games, and there was a stretch of the season where he was basically the best quarterback you had. You picked him up on waivers. You're like, I'm just going to keep playing him. Let's just keep going. He was just awesome. QB 13 first half of the season, QB 13 the second half, and then QB 10 through the playoffs. So really solid. He probably helped you get to a lot of good places. Looking at the future, he's got Cortland Sutton. I expect them to he's probably going to want to do another contract extension. I expect them to try to get that deal done. This team is really young. They have his college teammate in Troy Franklin. They have Marvin Mims, who we've seen in limited fashion where he's shown flashes. We were all frustrated his rookie year that he just didn't get the opportunity because when he got the ball, it was like, wow, this dude's special. So Bo Nix, I expect this team to be in the lookout for a wide receiver in the draft this year. They're going to probably get one of these guys just to kind of run alongside of Cortland Sutton. And if he's able to do what he was able to do this season, he's going to be usable. I think this team could really elevate his skill set. And Sean Payton is one of those coaches where he needs a good running game. So they could go double up and go offense in the draft, grab a wide receiver, grab a running back, and really just open things up because Bo Nix does really well with a pass-catching running back. We've seen that in college. He had a pretty low ADOT, but it didn't matter. I mean, we saw it this year. He was able to throw the deep ball. He was able to throw the intermediate ball, which is the most important part of the field. If you're accurate there, you're pretty good. So I expect Bo Nix to be one of these guys we're talking about in 2025 as, yeah, I should have drafted him higher. Bo Nix should be lights out great in 2025. All right, everyone, that was my top 12 Dynasty quarterbacks heading into the 2025 season. If you could do us a huge favor, click that like button, put a comment in there, tell me who I left off here that should be in, and who I put on here that maybe should be off. You know, we all have different opinions. I want to hear from everyone here. So also, if you could hit that subscribe button, you'll get notified when we have new episodes coming out. Really helps us out, and I appreciate it. So long, everyone.